Welcome back to So Many Comics, So Little Time. Today we're going to take a look at a Deadpool comic book that came out in September of 2014, titled Deadpool, Dracula's Gauntlet. It hit the shelves in September of 2014, and it was the beginning of a 7-issue weekly miniseries, which is a hard copy version of the Marvel Infinite digital comic titled Deadpool, the Gauntlet. Each printed issue of this series features 2 of the digital version chapters. While the storyline is not exactly new, the digital version came out a few months earlier from the published version. For those who missed the digital version prior to Deadpool's marriage, or those who are completist comic collectors of Deadpool, these comics are worth picking up. If you like Deadpool, it's worth reading. If you're reading the various Deadpool comics in 2013 to 2015, say from issue number 27 on, you are aware that our hero, Wade Wilson, got married to a succubus. No, really. And she's also queen of the monster underworld, and her name is Shiklah. This marriage led to a war between the forces of Mrs. Shiklah Deadpool and her former and very unhappy fiancé, Dracula. Yes, that Dracula. This Gauntlet story is basically the prequel to the whole Deadpool is getting married story arc, which is pretty good story arc if you haven't looked at that yet. So here we go. Mild spoilers here, but we assume you already know who Deadpool is, who Shiklah is, and a little bit about the Dracula thing, because the story did come out a few years ago. But for those of you who haven't read the storyline, if you like Deadpool and or vampires and or monsters, it's worth reading. So pause here now. Go read a bunch of Deadpool comics, come back, listen to us, finish our review. Okay, ready, set, go. All right, so the story opens with Wade rescuing a girl from the clutches of a Latverian assassin, Latveria being the country ruled by Dr. Doom. This assassin's in London and quickly evolves into a running battle with a vampire. This leads to Deadpool taking a job offer from Dracula, but not accepting a drink from him, to deliver a package from the Middle East to New York. The package is a coffin containing the presumed heir to the monster underworld, who is to marry Dracula and thus end a very long war between the vampires and the forces of the fiancé's family. What could go wrong? Nearly everything goes wrong. Our merc with a mouth rescues said coffin from some assassins, and at the end of issue number 1 is seen sailing away with a still unopened prize. And then Deadpool, Dracula's Gauntlet number 2, opens in typical crazed Deadpool fashion with our hero busting loose the animals from a zoo in Greece. How do you get from Middle East to Greece? Oh well. And in order to hitch the zoo's zebra, named Mustafa, to a cart containing the aforementioned coffin. Oh, and how do we know the zebra is named Mustafa? Because in Deadpool's crazy world, even wild animals have thought balloons. And we see that this animal does not think too highly of Wade. Anyway, back to our tale. While scaring off the local Greeks with his tales of vampires, Deadpool awakens a minotaur, because this is Greece, of course, who feels he needs to rid his village of Deadpool and his package. Referring to the coffin here in terms of package. Hint to Deadpool. Did you notice the minotaur said he can sense evil? And he is not referring to you or to poor Mustafa, the zebra. And after the requisite Deadpool-Minotaur battle, which is pretty good, and the chase, we finally get to see the contents of the coffin. This is our first glimpse of Shiklah, Dracula's fiancée, the evilly beautiful Shiklah. And we hear her tell Deadpool her origin story, because there has to be an origin story, because it's a comic book. And they mention the word vampires, being mentioned many times. Who do you think shows up? Well, Blade, of course. If you're not familiar with Blade, he is a half-human, half-vampire hybrid who has dedicated his life to ridding the world of vampires. So, he has a good reason to stop the impending Dracula-Shiklah nuptials, because a war between monsters is always a good thing, right? But if he kills the aforementioned package, Deadpool does not get paid. Remember, he's a merc with a mouth. Cue in a decent Blade-Deadpool fight and some monstrous intervention by Shiklah. All in all, this is a pretty good Deadpool story. Zany, crazy, and yet all the wackiness is centered around a real story that we now know, real, I mean, in the Marvel Universe, we now know will have major ramifications in the life of Deadpool. The story is by Brian Posehn and Gary Dugan, with Dugan taking on the actual writing chores. The art is by Riley Brown. Posehn and Dugan have a good handle on what Deadpool is all about. This is a well-done story, and Poole stays in character. Plus, he's funny, which is part of being a character. Riley Brown does a great job with the art. Deadpool looks like Deadpool should, as opposed to the not very good art of John Lucas in the regular Deadpool comics title during this time period. No offense to John Lucas, but his art isn't all that great, and Deadpool doesn't look very Poolish. Anyway, and Shiklah is drawn in a very beautiful manner. Blade looks good, and so does the Minotaur, Mustafa also. A couple of questions do come up in the story, more in the sense of continuity with Marvel history. And I am one of my major bugaboos, pet peeves, is when Marvel ignores continuity and or canon without explaining things. I know. I should have better things to worry about, but, you know, it bugs me sometimes. Anyway, back to what is the problem here? So, the questions about the sense of continuity with Marvel history. Dracula is a long-term Marvel character. He's first introduced to the modern Marvel fans in 1972 with Tomb of Dracula, the name of his book, by Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. Good artist, by the way. Good writer, too, Marv. They styled their Dracula in the classic Bela Lugosi look, like you've seen in most of the older vampire movies. And to a lot of fans of that title, that's how the comic book character Dracula looks. Now, Dracula that hires Deadpool looks like a takeoff on the undead in Interview with the Vampires, played by Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, which was a good movie, but they didn't look like Bela Lugosi, which is obviously Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt are better looking than Bela Lugosi. Anyway, why would an undying lord change his hair from black, Bela Lugosi look, to whitish blonde, as we see in this Deadpool book? Is this supposed to be the same character? Since even Marvel would have trouble explaining two guys calling themselves Dracula, this is probably the Dracula. Blade seems to think so. How about some continuity here? Other than that, this is a pretty good read. With Deadpool, Dracula's Gauntlet number 3, which would be the next book in the series, we hopefully find out what happens with Deadpool and Shiklah, and does Blade turn up, or will he return to battle our merc with a mouth? And will Mustafa ever make it back to the plains of his homeland? We can only hope. If you like Deadpool, and just want to see the pre-story to Deadpool's marriage, or you like vampires, minotaurs, or zebras with thought balloons, pick up this series and read it. Available on Marvel Unlimited, or if you want to actually hold the graphic novel in your hands, it is available on Amazon for purchase. So this has been a Deadpool retro review on So Many Comics, So Little Time. If you like our review, please subscribe to us. And we do podcast reviews of Star Trek, Star Wars, current comic books, but frankly, mostly older books, because there's a lot of good stories out there that a lot of folks maybe didn't pick up when they first came out, and they're worth going back to look at. And with Marvel Unlimited, and you can just click on something on Amazon and get it in your hot little hands within a few days, there are so many options to go back and pick up on old stories in the comics. So again, this is Roger Lee with So Many Comics, So Little Time. This has been our latest Deadpool review. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and eat your chimichangas.